Welcome to the Rotary Times, a public service program presented by Rotary District 7610, Virginia. Funding for this program is made possible by the generosity of Rotary District 7610. On our programs, we talk with Rotarians and community leaders and discuss Rotary International and how it helps local, national, and world communities. I am your host, Rotarian Dr. Deborah Jackson with the Rotary Club of McLean, Virginia. And along with me as co-host is Rotarian James Holcombe Jr. with the Rotary Club of Bailey's Crossroads, Virginia. Our guest for this program is the District 7610 Governor for the 2019 through 2020 club year, DG Jonathan Lucus. District Governor Jonathan, welcome to the Rotary Times.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. I thought maybe I wouldn't be invited again after last time. But
well, this time as District Governor.
Yeah, this time as District Governor.
That sounds good, doesn't it?
Yes, very important job. We want to go ahead and get started with some questions so that our viewing audience has an opportunity to learn a lot more about our new District Governor.
Certainly.
Okay? So tell us about your unique experience with Rotary, because I know you started at a very young age with Rotary and have come all this way and now appointed as the District Governor. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's about 20 years ago. I started in 1998 as a Rotaractor and also ambassadorial scholar to Moscow, Russia.
Wow.
I've done numerous international projects in places like Zimbabwe and Russia and other places around the world. And I've been president of two clubs, one club in District 7620 above us, and
Okay.
I started a club at the west end of Alexandria 5 years ago, to be exact, and was the founder and first president of that club as well. So I think my experience seeing Rotary from all different angles, seeing it as a young person, seeing it now as an older person, makes me uniquely fit for this job, and hopefully I can sort of build that bridge between generations.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But I'm just so thrilled that you're here today to help spread the good news, about where people can start, not knowing where they may end up.
Yeah,
that's right.
Thank you for sharing that.
And so we see your background. Now, how is that going to help you? How can you use that experience and education and talent as a launch pad for a successful District Governor?
Yeah, well, my professional background, I am a senior executive for an organization that's about $4.1 billion annually in revenue. It's a membership organization, so just like Rotary, it's about making these local entities stronger and better. I also have a degree from Georgetown, an advanced master's degree in business leadership. And I think combining my education, my professional experience, my main job is to work with Fortune 500 companies in creating diversity initiatives. So I see that as a very important point of what we need to do to grow Rotary as well. So taking what I have learned, what I do on a daily basis, and injecting that into the Rotary model, I think will make me successful in this year.
And you connect with approximately how many different companies from time to time? How many connections?
Anywhere from 650. We have 650 chapters around the United States, and I work with about 20 to 30 companies a year.
So my point is you learn different techniques and approaches that can be used in a variety of ways for Rotary.
Of course, and it always goes back to that service above self. How do you make your client stronger? At the end of the day, that's the goal.
Now we make Rotary stronger.
Governor Jonathan, talk to us about your leadership style, because you said something a minute ago about being able to take these various companies, but that takes a leadership skill. Talk to us about your style. I think I heard some things about your style, but I want you to share with us.
Yeah, you have to be transformational. You have to be able to understand another person's or another entity's needs. You have to be somewhat charismatic, because you got to go in there, you got to convince whomever you're working with that, hey, this is going to be interesting, this is going to be fun. And you have to be authentic, because at the end of the day, if people don't believe in who you are, what you stand for, what you're capable of doing for them, they're not going to get on the bus with you.
Yeah.
So when you say authentic, I think there's a couple other words that may fit into your vision. Why don't you tell us what some of that is?
Well, I think everything this year is centered around what I'm calling the 5 points of light.
Wonderful.
And those start with diversity, start with innovation, being very visible to the community, engagement with our clubs and with organizations outside the district, and lastly, transparency and continuity. So I think my leadership style is really, and my focus is to create those 5 avenues to strengthen Rotary, strengthen our clubs, connect us to the greater community out there. Because this year's motto from the RI president is Rotary Connects the World. And I've taken a version of that as Rotary Connects Community for the 7610 model this year.
And you're a little younger than most of our previous district governors, so I think innovation might be somewhere where you can shine.
Yeah, I hope so. There's a very wise man that once told me that we need to remove some of the barriers that prevent people from joining Rotary. And that comes in the form of understanding dues costs, to understanding just some of the roles we've had in the past. They're somewhat esoteric. How do we get people into Rotary who want to be Rotarians? Why are we making it harder for them? We need to make it easier for them. We need
Rotary
to attract
police.
them. Rotary Police.
Yeah. Well, your core values obviously stand out, and we know any leadership is anchored in the core values. And I think you as a leader, looking at those 5 lights, is that what you call 5?
Points of life.
Points of life.
5 points of life. I love it. I think it's wonderful. That's got to be translated to the various clubs. How will you make sure that happens?
It's tough. I've got a great team in place that I think model my ethos, and but I think it comes from understanding the role of the district, which is to serve our clubs, to strengthen our clubs. We're here for them, and by providing ideas, providing opportunities, which hopefully we'll talk more about in this program, but to make those connections, to make their success much easier.
Yeah.
So Rotary's a brand. We're going to talk a little about public relations and media. Some of your ideas on innovation relate to strengthening Rotary as a brand.
Precisely. I think it's the main thing that I'm trying to do this year is to really get our clubs to talk about their success, talk about how they're impacting their communities, both here, locally, and globally. But we got to get that word out beyond ourselves. And so by collecting some really important data points and telling those stories through photos and through our experiences will help us connect with all types of people. I'm trying to be a little more innovative how we communicate electronically with our customers and with potential new members is important. Using things like Instagram, understanding where the younger generation is and going to them, not expecting them to come to us.
That's correct. You have to have activities and you have to have things that they're excited about to bring them in. You can't just assume that we have a goal of bringing in X amount of youth into the club without any satisfaction on their part.
Precisely. Precisely.
And that's important, especially if you're looking at being transformational. That means a lot to our millennials or whoever, really. And how will you, I know you said you're going to be looking at clubs to offer data points to assess their impact. That will be submitted regularly, or how will you use that information?
Yeah, I've got a great team of assistant governors around the district, and they'll be collecting those data points on a quarterly basis from each president. And then we'll be highlighting those impact points both outward to outward audience and then internally to district membership.
I got you.
And speaking of your advisors, some of your advisors are what we call the district governor string. So you're looking at this thing not as a one-shot year. You're trying to bridge several years by coordinating with the past, you said past district governors, and the future in line to have your position in the future. Tell me why that's important to have a 3-year plan, a strategic plan, strategic thinking.
Yeah, that's one of the points of light is consistency, and I think you can't have that if you attempt to go out on your own and do things on the mindset of, I got 12 months. I can't make the change that I want to make if I solely think I can do it in that time period. So working with the next two district governors to understand what their thinking is and come to an agreement on some very key aspects of how we grow and maintain the district is very important. But it's also learning from all the great past district governors they're here, they're around, they've experienced it. But taking that experience from them and creating some new ways forward is very important.
Yeah.
Synergism. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So when we think about the immediate past district governor who had a top 10 list that he would send to clubs and speak to them when he would visit, what's your thinking on visitation? How will you manage some of that?
Oh, it's a great question. You know, I see myself as the district's biggest cheerleader.
Okay.
My job is to go out to those clubs, use those 5 points of light as a way to motivate them to go and do more and be more. And I don't want to be the traditional club visit where I'm just going to a board meeting or I'm going to a regular meeting. I'm interested in going to a variety of things and learning about the clubs and taking that information back to the governor's string, to my fellow leadership team, and being a microphone for the success that they're having.
Yes. That's wonderful.
And you could take ideas from one club and share it
Another.
throughout the district.
They can benchmark against other clubs throughout the district, because we all are struggling with some of the same issues, membership, you know, and how do we best handle that, so, and retention. So that's good to hear. Okay. Can you tell us more about what's the number one thing that you can think of, one thing that you expect from your clubs that you can think of right now?
It's diversity.
Okay.
I am so keen on that. Our clubs need to represent the communities that we're in.
It's true.
So for each club, that diversity may look a little different, but it's about being purposeful. So one of the things I talked about a month and a half ago at our last district training was, look, we have to be purposeful in reaching out to the LGBTQ community, to the African American community,
Right.
to the Asian community, to the Muslim community, and that recruit people, help them understand what Rotary is and why we need them and how we can help them, and to make our clubs truly represent the communities that we live in.
Your club has to look like your community.
And by the way, by doing that, we'll be more successful.
Yes.
McKinsey did a study in 2015 that said companies outperform other companies who are more diverse by 30%.
Right.
That's applicable to Rotary as well.
Yeah, so that's something that should be shared, I guess, with all clubs once you arrive. You know, as you said, we're mostly looking forward to your visit because you do share the values that many others Rotarians have in some of the clubs, you know, in the Northern Virginia area especially. So we're excited about what you will bring. We're going to take a short break and be right back and talk more with the District 7610 Governor for the 2019 and 2020, District Governor Jonathan Lucus. So stay with us.
We are this close.
We're this close.
We are this close
Of wanting to
making history.
This close to changing the world.
We are this close.
This close.
This close to making sure no child suffers a crippling disease.
Ever again. This close.
We are this close to ending polio.
Ending polio.
All we need is you.
this close.
If we don't act now, we may lose this chance forever. Help Rotary make history at endpolionow.org.
Welcome back to the Rotary Times. We are talking with the District Governor for 7610 for the 2019-2020 club year, District Governor Jonathan Lucus. And we're discussing his year as the Rotary District Governor. So, Jonathan, when we left for break, you mentioned, well, we were discussing some of the expectations the governors often have for their, you know, each district or their clubs. Talk about some of your priorities for your clubs for this year.
Certainly. Again, it goes back to how we engage in the community. So membership is always a priority because I think that ties very closely to foundation dollars. So we're looking to see that each club increase the membership by 10%.
That's right.
But it's not just to increase membership. I want to be very clear about that. It's about increasing, again, the diversity, the way we think,
That's right.
bringing in new ideas. Also focus on the youth. So Rotaract, expanding Rotaract, Interact clubs, getting those Rotaractors who now can be dual members of both Rotary and Rotaract, getting them into the clubs.
That's it.
Really want to focus again on bringing in more youth exchange from around the world into our district. That was a program that I, years ago, spent a lot of time in. It's dear to me, and I think it's very important for young people to have the chance to travel and learn. So I think that's important. Again, communication's key. We've got to start talking outside of ourselves. So my focus is really going to be on how to help clubs speak to the greater community about themselves.
Too many times we've seen symposiums put on by Rotarians, Rotarians talking to other Rotarians. That's not going to bring in any new members.
I'd like to go back to the Rotaract, because I think our audience may not necessarily be as familiar with that. They know the high school component and middle school component, but the Rotaracts are very unique, but they bring another whole different type of energy to Rotary. Talk about the Rotaract, and you mentioned them in looking at membership.
Yeah, and that's why I'm here today, because I was a Rotaractor. And
He was a Rotary.
It's from college age young adults up to age 30, and what's great about it is it's a little less formal than a lot of Rotary meetings. The dues are a lot less, but it gives people a chance to engage in community service. So you got a lot of young, bright people who are looking for opportunities to experience leadership roles, to connect with other people in their communities, and it's a great conduit into Rotary. We've had a sort of a failed experience, at least in the United States, converting those Rotaractors into Rotarians, and I think that's, I mean, look, young people are now very sophisticated, a lot more than when I was in my 20s, for sure, and so we need that barrier is now broken, that they can be a Rotaractor, but then they can also be a Rotarian.
That's right.
I think that's key.
Wonderful. Because I've read some of the research out there on that age demographic. They no longer want that meeting piece that you're talking about. They want the actual hands-on, what can I do for you or my community
They want
experience.
connections, which was his theme.
So that would be great. It's good to hear. Okay. Much of your time leading up to your year as district governor was focused on personnel and just establishing your own vision. And so now, let's see how you're going to tie that to the governor's citation.
Yeah, so some of the biggest, as you know, the governor's citation, you have points for different hurdles you cross or different thresholds you meet. So some of the biggest points are around diversity and around membership engagement, around youth activities. That's what I want to see happen. So the carrot is, hey, if you do these things, if you engage the youth, if you go out and you connect with organizations outside of your club to create diversity within your club, if you're doing projects in the community, you're going to get a lot of points.
Let's talk about those projects. One of the connections is all Rotary have the 6 areas of focus.
Yep.
They've got something that looks similar, but you're going to put your own stamp, like CART, like fighting opioids. Those strong signature projects that you personally want to put your stamp on. Why don't you give us some more, our readers, more details on that?
Yeah, I love the projects that we're going to take on this year or continue, and they do fit within the 6 avenues of Rotary. Opioid awareness is something that I started under past District Governor Glenn's year. It's now picking up some steam. The clubs in Fairfax are doing some great things I'm very excited about, meeting with their community, doing awareness campaigns. We're going to expand that because this is an issue that's in every community in the world, and especially ours here in Northern Virginia. And that's the other thing I want to talk about. The projects that we want to undertake or support as a district are things that affect you and me. Yes, we are still fighting polio, and we're going to fight that to the end. It's very important, but that's less an issue here in Northern Virginia, right? So how do people bring people into Rotary to fight something they're not even experiencing? Opioid awareness. Everybody's been touched with that almost somehow.
Yes.
CART, which is a Coins for Alzheimer's Awareness and Research. This is something I also brought in this past year. I was the chair of the CART project here in the district, and I've turned that over to James McConnell. He's great. He's got that background to do this very well. And last year we raised almost $4,000. Our goal is to raise a lot more than that this year, and to get clubs thinking about how we can support that cause, because it's going to be those researchers who find the cure eventually.
Yes. And who knows, we have an infrastructure with polio for healthcare around the world. Who knows, this may be one of the things that can supplant polio.
Right. Right, and it's taking that existing infrastructure and solving a no problem.
That's right.
Which is neat. Things that we're going to continue are done in a day.
Yes.
Flags for Heroes, which my club just partnered with the Alexandria Club this past weekend and put 125 flags in the ground.
Wonderful.
So we're going to continue.
I helped you with that.
Yeah, yeah, you did, and we appreciate that. And we're going to continue the peace projects as well. So I think there's a lot of neat things. You can do the peace polls in community parks. You can have anti-bullying campaigns and, of course, peace conferences. So these are all things that tie very directly to Rotary International's focus, or foci in this case, and something we do in the district to change people's lives
So
here.
a big umbrella, but also unique. Clubs can be different too.
Yeah, and clubs can pick and choose what they want to do.
That's right.
That
Passions.
meets the needs of their communities
Yeah.
that they're serving. Yeah, it's just so wonderful to hear that, because everything you've just mentioned are those things that we, as parents or educators or professionals in the community, see a real need for. So you are addressing the needs of our communities, and I think it's very much welcome. And our school system, have you thought of maybe doing some partnering there with some of these very same ideas?
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
And our university systems as
Gotcha.
well.
They're all doing that. So thank you.
Now, you go nowhere in any organization unless you've got a good, solid organization, and you've been talking about the leadership. Tell us more about your leadership team.
Yeah, I got some.
Probably already have that in place.
Got some great folks. I got 3 great advisors. Angie Mokhtar. We have a gentleman by the name of Bill, who's also in my club. And there's another guy who hosts the Rotary Times, who's also an advisor, Mr. Holcombe here.
Okay.
And those folks,
Bill Berry.
Bill Berry. And sorry, everybody knows Bill.
Yep.
And those folks are sort of my heart and soul and brain, and they're going to help make sure that we're living out our vision, but also are we living out our vision as good people this year. We've got some great people running our marketing communications, and Dave Mercer and Jim Kirkpatrick.
That's right.
We have a great group of AGs who are very diverse, a lot of women in our senior roles as well. We have a new person coming in as our youth services chair, and Matt
Levitt.
Matt
Levitt.
Levitt.
He's taken over for Dr. PJ Maddox,
Okay.
and who's been great.
And most importantly, Ralph.
We got Ralph Manzel. He's going to, you'll hear from him. You heard from him today already,
Yeah.
day number 1. He's overseeing our chair of a membership.
man.
And of course, Ronnie
Tanker.
Chanker is our
Foundation.
incoming foundation chair.
Yeah, you have-
What a team.
What a team.
All-star.
Yes,
all-star
an
team.
all-star
Except
team.
for me.
That's good. Well, everyone needs advisors. So we've seen pictures of your children on at various places and times. Tell us about your family and a little about how they will support you through your journey, leadership journey this year.
Yeah, so I've got 2 boys, 4.5 and soon to be 7-year-old. And you've probably seen they follow me around to Rotary events all the time, and it will be no different in my governor year. I think it's important. I mean, I learned through Rotary through my father. And then growing up and being a Rotaractor, some of my biggest mentors were Rotarians. And I want my sons to meet people just like you guys and say, man, there are people in this world doing great things. I want to be like them. And then my wife, who recently became a vice president of a startup company who's building.
I think that's very interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, so she's with a national company who are building high-end preschools around the country to educate young children.
Is she connecting it to STEM?
And she's from China.
Yes,
That's
my wife's
great.
from China, so you know my house is very diverse. There's 3 languages any day spoken in my house.
There you go.
But she's got her own work to do, and she'll be coming to me in important events, but she can't be everywhere that I am. But she's playing a great role, and this is something I talked to this past week. I've done a couple of installations at a couple clubs, and I pointed out the spouses, and I particularly thanked them because your spouse, your significant other, are the folks that are going to make you successful, and so she's going to be behind the scenes making sure I'm successful.
There you go. As we close out this segment of the program, I'm going to ask you, what's your legacy going to sound like?
Wow, good question.
From other...
Got to start thinking about that now.
Yeah. It's a good question. I don't focus on myself too much in this, but I tell you what I hear from others, is that I'm somebody who is authentic, somebody who doesn't try to create success for myself, but for others, and to understand that teamwork is hugely important. And I think if my legacy is, hey, something my father's always told me, when you leave something, leave it as good at or as better than you found it.
That's
And
perfect.
It's perfect.
That's what I want to do.
Or better.
Thank
Or
you.
better.
Good dad, good dad. Funding for this program is made possible by the generosity of Rotary District 7610, Virginia. For the Rotary Time program, I am your host, Rotarian Dr. Deborah Jackson with the Rotary Club of McLean, Virginia. And along with me as co-host is Rotarian James Holcombe Jr. with the Rotary Club of Bailey's Crossroads, Virginia. You are welcome to join us at any Rotary Club in your area for either breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You can find a club near you by looking us up on the internet. Remember, our time is your time, and it is time well spent. Please join us for our next program as we continue to celebrate Rotary's 110 years of service above self.